coaching and training people how to start businesses from home. Right now, we are in a very, very unique time. What I've learned on my journey is that um, having your head on right is probably one of the most important things we need to do if we're going to create any level of success. And I'm talking professional success, I'm talking relationship success. It actually permeates everything that we do. Now, when I started thinking about this the other day, I said, who's the person that I really can reach out to share some wisdom? And I came up with this guy. He's an amazing guy. If you don't know Doug, his name is Doug Stewart. He's a TEDx speaker. He's a coach. He's a speaker. He's so passionate about helping people move the needle from where they are to where they want to go. And I knew that he would be the guy that could really have a great discussion on self-identity and how we can massage that to we can not only survive this process that we're in right now, but thrive. So Doug, thanks so much for being here, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your backstory before we jump into some of these questions about self-identity. How did you arrive to where you are right now, being such an influencer?
I think just being willing to do it wrong. I had a mentor once that said that the best progress is light pressure consistently applied. And so I think I've just been giving light pressure to my development for the last, I don't know, couple of decades.
That's a cool thing. What kind of obstacles have you experienced in that journey for yourself?
I think the biggest obstacle is just not wanting to ever admit I'm wrong. Like myself is my biggest obstacle, which the good news is that's someone that I can spar with every day. But the bad news is someone that never really leaves me alone. And that I can't really beat it. So from a I guess a philosophical standpoint, the answer is myself. A more practical way is, gosh, I was kind of set up early in my life to not be particularly successful based on some learning disabilities and dyslexia and ADHD and some sensory issues and all these different problems, so to speak. I was also had the misfortune of growing up in a family with two parents who loved me and did the best they could for me. And so sometimes that has caused me to believe that other people will also treat me the same way. And so, I have had a business. I have failed in business. I've been punched in the mouth as much as I've been kissed by life. And I'm grateful for both of those.
Yeah. What's up with the 919 thing on your head? What's the backstory there?
Your last guest, or maybe not last guest, but one before, Josh Bledsoe. He actually gifted me this. This is a one of one. He made this specifically for me. I think the 919 sort of started. Well, I grew up here, so I grew up with my area code always being 919, and there was the time that I got ready to sign up for I forget which, I think it was maybe Instagram, but the name Doug Stewart was taken. So just off the cuff, I just added my area code. And then that ended up being my website. And then somehow it's just become something that I really identify with. And I enjoy doing most of my business in this area as well. So this is home, man.
Yeah. And didn't you have some sort of goal not to be on the road or travel? And you wanted to be within that 60-mile.
Yeah. When I was early in my career, I was traveling a lot, and then we had our first child. And when my daughter was 1, I was traveling more than I wanted to, and I really wanted to tuck her in at night and have breakfast with her in the mornings. So I went to Google Maps and dropped a pin on my house and did a 60-mile radius, and said, starting. With some strategery, deciding that over the next course of the year, however long it took, I was going to do the primary bulk of my business in a place where I could have dinner and breakfast with my family.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so important that you didn't say it, but I definitely heard it loud and clear, because this is the second time you've told that story, is you knew what kind of person that you wanted to be, what kind of dad you wanted to be. And I think a lot of times, we go to school, go to college sometimes, we get a job, maybe have our own business or still work for somebody else. And we never really create those boundaries, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
for who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about the who we are, the self-identity, and what role that plays in our relationships and in our performance.
Yeah, I think the thing when I look back on the times I feel like I've done this well and the times I feel like I've done this really poorly, the times that I've done it poorly is when I've thought about this is who I am. And I made it like this is concrete. This is who I am. I am the type of person that, whether it's just an activity or a strength or a weakness or a preference. And the times that I've done it the best is when I've thought this is the person I am becoming. Because it's never something I know that I'm not going to obtain the person that I want to become, but it's always something to chase after. And that's what that does for me is that allows me to think about myself as something that's ever changing. It's like the best weather forecast is conditions will change, because that's always the truth. And sort of the same with me in my journey. So as I've thought about what makes me, I found it more helpful to think about, hey, who do I want to become and what is the next practical step to do that? So I'm always becoming and never really settle in on this is who I am forever and always.
Right. So if somebody has never done that and they're intrigued by this whole concept, where do they start?
I have found that inside of my brain is a terrible place to process these things. Because what happens, right? Because our creativity, just naturally, our creativity is always faster than our rational mind. Mm-hmm. And this is why, fears can run away with us. This is why, I tell this story about a time when I was going to the airport for a really big meeting that I had, and I got in traffic. And the second I got in traffic, my mind was aware of reality and said, oh my gosh, maybe I'm going to be late for my flight. But my mind didn't stop there. My mind went from that to I'm going to be late to the flight to I'm going to miss the meeting. If I miss the meeting, I'm not going to get this piece of business. If I don't get this piece of business, I'm not going to make my year. If I don't make my year, I'm going to lose my job. If I lose my job, I'm going to lose my house. If I lose my house, my wife's going to leave me. My wife will lose me. I'll never see my kids get right. And so you go through the spiral. And that's our creativity at work, through our fear, using our fear as a vehicle. What I have found is the best way is to get the things out of your head, get them on paper. For some people, they can do it digitally. I can't. I need pencil and physical paper. And just to start, hey, who am I being today? And who would I like to become in the future? I have done this, and I continue to do this maybe once every 30 to 60 days. Is I take one piece of paper, I split it down the middle. On one side, I write the word fulfilling. The other side, I write the word impactful. Mm-hmm. And so I write down all the things that I am doing that are easy, that are fulfilling, that are in my wheelhouse. It may not be things I'm perfect at, but things I've got some natural talent or enjoyment around. And then I write down a list of all the things that I'm doing that's having some impact.
Right.
And I try to do more of the things that show up on both of those lists and less of the things that show up just on one.
That's awesome.
And so getting it on paper for me is by far the best way to sort of understand who I am and who I'm becoming. And that impacts, when we think about if that impacts relationships and how and performance, I think it is the results that we get. The way we think about that impacts the things that we do. The things that we do impact what we get, whether that's healthy relationships or performance in general.
Yeah. I think that's so important. So a lot of what we're talking about is go back to your core values, maybe your passions, study other people that you want to be like who already have accomplished what you want. Look at their core values, look at their identity, look at their habits and behaviors, and then start there in this. I have a saying that's like, I'm getting better and better every day. I don't think I'll ever arrive, because I have that quest for always self-improvement. But even this morning, every morning, I read my identity statement. Every morning, I read my affirmations, my definiteness of purpose, if you're a Napoleon Hill fan. It's being very, very clear on who you are, because when you know who you are, it's so easy to say no to those other things that don't help you, support that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about that focus. Where people are now in this, shelter in place, self quarantine thing. How and where should people be focused right now on this journey, you think?
Yeah, I think in general, uncertainty exposes us.
Mm.
One of the things I've learned about myself is I've learned being here at home and being really close to myself and my family for the last handful of weeks. I've really had an opportunity to see some of the areas of my identity that I've lied to myself about.
Mm.
Like for an easy example is there's been some things that I've been able to say, man, I've really earned the right in this area to say this about myself, and maybe I haven't been completely honest with myself. One is, for me, hands down, has been my like exercise routine, like getting out and doing what I say I'm going to do. I find that I'm working out more now. I'm spending more time sort of stretching and doing those sorts of things that I've always said were valuable and important to me. But then there's other places I've lied to myself, like my Oreo consumption, for example. I went to the grocery store the last time I went, which we try to only go right now about every 10 to 12 days is kind of what we shoot for. And they were all out of our regular double stuffed Oreos and only had mega stuffed. So I not only am I eating more, but I've upgraded the filling and now prefer the mega stuffed. But I've noticed that my discipline isn't as good. I rely too much on my motivation for my nutrition and how I feel in the moment. And so it's showing me that I've had my environment. When your environment changes and you're not able to keep up with the habit, it means it probably wasn't a real disciplined habit in the first place. Which we can get into talking about environment design and why that's important. That's a whole nother rabbit trail, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just came off a 72-hour fast, and I feel so energized and so much energy. I woke up this morning, 5 o'clock yesterday. It was like 10 to 5, something like that. And I have so much more clarity and so much more focus to do the things that I need to do. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I did just this morning is really look at my schedule and say, okay, how can I be a better performer? And the only person like you, I'm competing against myself. Mm-hmm. Because that's the thing. And the mistake that I've made, or the kind of lie I've given myself, is I know I should track everything, but I haven't. So this morning I made my tracking chart, and I will be tracking everything, hour by hour, project by project, and making sure that I am showing up as the person that I really want to become. And I think that's where it's really easy to lie, is that you have the self-identity, but you don't really show up of that. Well, I want to make sure that I have the metrics in place to say, did I do it? It's a binary question, yes or no. I don't need a story or an excuse. Is it yes or no?
Right. It reminds me. So when I do coaching with people that are trying to start or establish or gain some momentum around particular habits, I utilize habit trackers all the time. I use them for myself, and it's just simply taking a calendar and saying, here are my, when I teach it, I teach no more than 3 to 5 habits at a time that we're tracking. And so the way to identify those habits, a lot of times, is to think about which one drives other things.
Right.
And so my grandpa used to have this saying. My grandfather was a depression baby from a tobacco farm. And he used to say, if you get the horse's head over the fence, the rest of the horse will follow.
Yeah. Right.
And so sometimes you got to think about from a task standpoint, from a habit standpoint, what is that one habit? What's the horse's head that if I do this, I naturally do those other things? Right. And I'm learning those. I'm learning those day after day for myself.
That's cool. So let's wrap this up and talk about what kind of insights or advice would you give somebody, Josh, who wants to really get serious about taking advantage of this time to really change or maybe enhance their identity so that they can be headed in that right direction. So their head is over the fence and the rest is going to follow.
Yeah. I think the first thing is knowing that there's nothing that will last forever with them. not your not a belief, not your mind, not your body. Nothing you have or possession is going to necessarily last forever. So thinking about yourself as something that is becoming more than something that just simply is. And then the next thing is getting it on paper. Write those things down, and there's 100 different processes. I have mine, and every other coach has theirs. But the most important thing is going through the discipline of putting it on paper on purpose, and then saying it out loud. Whether that's to yourself in a mirror, to a significant other, to a kid, to I don't know, pull out a stuffed animal. We're all getting lonely enough to start talking to inanimate objects. And so just say it out loud, and then do that consistently. And that will give you the awareness to then know what behaviors are most valuable.
Is that kind of similar to reprogramming or programming your subconscious mind?
Yeah, I think so. Whether it's, and it's interesting that we can talk about consciously reprogramming the subconscious, right? We could get really deep with that really fast. But you do listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Your mind hears every word you think. And it also reminds me, I think this is probably worth mentioning. I've got a friend, his name's Jason Goldberg. And once he told me, he said, you have to remember that you are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of your thoughts.
Right.
And so just because it goes through your mind doesn't mean that's a part of who you are. You get to decide which parts that you grab onto and resonate with and identify with. And that's been a really helpful concept for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Doug, I want to say thanks so much for making time. I know you're running 100 miles an hour and you got lots of things juggling in the air, as well as making sure that you're that dad figure that you want to be. So I'm proud of you for that, and I certainly appreciate who you are. And people want to connect with you, any social media platform, Doug Stewart 919, is that the best way?
Best way.
All right, brother. Well, thanks so much for being here again, Doug. My friend watching, I know you got some valuable tips. You'll probably want to watch this interview a couple of times so you can pick up on some of the insights that Doug had. Reach out to him. Amazing guy, amazing mentor and coach. He's an influencer. He will help you take one step closer to becoming that person that you really want to become, so that you can do the things and create the quality of life that you want. Remember this, my friend, you have a choice. Make it a better than terrific day and a prosperous one, because you, yes, you absolutely deserve it. Until next time, bye-bye for now.